Hello and welcome to this Getting Started with Trimble Connect webinar. My name is Anders Larsson. I work as an innovation lead at BCF Scandinavia, and with me today I have
She. And I work as a technical consultant.
And behind the camera we have our medical marketing guy, Thomas. And the agenda for today is that we're gonna, for this webinar, do a brief introduction of Trimble Connect, go through the different, the overview of Trimble Connect or the different areas of Trimble Connect. We're going to talk a little bit how you're setting up your first project, working with the 3D viewer, introduction to workflow extensions that we're going to cover mainly in the next session, the more advanced session, and do a short summary. So first of all, BCF Scandinavia, we work in many fields regarding building and construction infrastructure. And we work with field technology, 3D scanners, total stations. We also use augmented reality, mixed reality solutions out in the field. And the combination of those two, that the cog between the two topics, is actually the software. So one of the platforms we're going to talk today is Trimble Connect. We also have Tech Lab and other tools as well. And our main mission is just to help North European industry connect the physical and digital worlds. So what is Trimble Connect? Trimble Connect is a cloud-based common data environment where you can store all your product information and documentation and distribute that to the team. And that is basically what Trimble means with Trimble Connect, and it's both for engineering and construction and many other fields. We also work with this in offshore and other industries. But for BCF Scandinavia, press the wrong button. We work with this as a production BIM platform. And what we mean by that is just how to succeed with digitalization on the construction site. Just to include everyone in the project, distribute the correct information, have a transparency so everyone gets the same information at the same time. We work also with the information breakdown that we're going to talk briefly about today, but cover more in the next webinar. And how to communicate this information to the product team and the site crew and everything else. And other things that we cover as well or work with is just how to use this in a better way, because Trimble Connect is a platform, is a toolbox, and we like to teach our customers how to use the different tools so they work perfectly together. So a little bit what we do a little bit cover what we do. We do product services or product support on Trimble Connect projects. We also talk about how companies can require different attributes so they can help streamlining their workflow. And we do also some innovation that we're not going to cover in this area, but we're going to address some of the innovations or the extension development we have done in the next webinar. So to go through a little bit what we do with Trimble Connect, just an overview. What is available in Trimble Connect today that we're going to talk about mainly, we're going to talk about the first things, the ones that are on the bottom there is more the advanced tools. We're going to briefly touch them, talk about them today, but we're going to talk more about them in the next webinar. So just regarding data sharing, data sharing is just to collect every information. It's stored in a cloud database and can be shared with all the project participants. You have full access and full control of your activities and programs, so you can see who's done what and who's uploaded what and everything you need in activity tracking. The system itself has a version control, which means that not only the CAD files and everything else, but you can also access Windows, Excel directly from Trimble Connect. So you can use that as editing a Word document and it automatically create a new version of that document within Trimble Connect. You have the possibility to also have a 2D viewer and a 3D viewer. So you can both access old DVG files or other information in 2D and as well as 3D models that are mainly used in Trimble Connect. And see that we only have written down views, to-dos, and annotation here, but it's also, we haven't mentioned it, but BCF Topic is something that has been introduced as well. That's a new thing that we can use. To-dos you can use within Trimble Connect, mainly for internal communication. If you find something that you want to communicate to other team members. Views you can create, and we can talk a little bit about views today, but I think views is something that you communicate, especially if you have something you want to show to someone else. Not that common, not that used, but hybrid models is also a possibility to have in Trimble Connect. Normally we don't see that too often. Normally they only use 3D mainly in Norway, but it's possible to use. So I'm just going to briefly touch on the 3 bottom ones as well, because we're going to show some examples of this in a construction workflow next time, but just how you can have possibility to create your own property sets within Trimble Connect. And these property sets can be powerful in that case that you can visualize, for instance, status, model control, status control of model, and what you need. So again, not go into deep on that one today. And data table, I think that's the Excel for Trimble Connect. You can set up every type of information that is properties within Trimble Connect. You can set up your own reports. You can distribute information through that channel. You can also create something from that, especially if you have and want to export the CSV file for some information they want to share with someone outside Trimble Connect. We also use it mainly in the beginning for clarifying what type of information structure you have and have some controls and checks of that, so it's very usable. But when you've done that, you can use that to create your own breakdown structure. So when you're creating your own breakdown structure, you can set up your organizer according to the data table structure. And then you can work from there to break it down even further to communicate small work packages to the team. Something that is not commonly used, but I want to share it anyway, is just the status sharing. We don't normally use this too much. I think it's not that usable at all, but it's in there, so it's available. You can play around with it and test it yourself. But we've been mainly using custom properties to create status objects on projects. Trimble Connect is a platform and cloud-based, so you can connect other tools within this platform. So Trimble Connect is available. You can use it on laptop, your iPhone and tablet and stuff like that. We mainly use the browser version of Trimble Connect because that is the same view sets on every tool that you have. But if you want to go even further, if you want to use this for augmented reality or mixed reality, like the helmet with HoloLens, or just using augmented reality on a telephone or tablet, you can use the application, the apps from Trimble Connect. So you can visualize that in the field. So when I go from this, it will really fast go through all the main functionalities of Trimble Connect. But just focus a little bit when we start up a project. So when you start up a project, it's really easy. You have to write your name. The server location, you can choose between different, but for us in Norway, we choose Europe. The product ownership is a little bit important because if you have multiple different Trimble tools, you may have multiple different Trimble Connect accounts, or license accounts at least, not accounts, but license types. So choose the right license because that's the legal entity, legal owner on the project. So that's something you need to keep in mind when you start up. For me, I have different. So sometimes I have a SketchUp license that they want me to use or something else. I need to choose my EDR Medeso AS account. When you have done that, you open your project and create a folder to upload. So, which means that you see the folder structure, you create the folders that you need. In this case, it's only model files, scan data, and reports. And then in that, you can add, information models. So you upload your models or upload your documents, what you need in the different folders. The folder structure you can create that suits your project. So it's really easy. And regarding file formats, I'm not going to go into everything, but this is a list, more an overview of the supported 2D file formats, geospatial, 3D files, and point cloud files formats. Some of these can be used in the browser, as you can see. We also have the Windows version of Trimble Connect, so it's a little bit different. So this is something you can find on if you just Google it. So Trimble Connect and file formats, you can find it. So regarding team invite, how to get your project members into this. So when you go into teams, first of all, create groups. You can define groups, and the groups are really important when you're going to distribute the information afterwards. So create groups, and then you invite members. And you can add them in a manual way, like you see there on the small one. When you erase me from the picture, it's easier to see. Otherwise, you can mass load Trimble IDs, your email addresses, or the team to invite. So it's possible to do both. It's far easier if you have a list in a spreadsheet of team members to want to include in your project, so not one by one. I talked about the groups were more important because sometimes I need to set the permissions of each group. The permissions set what you can see in the model, so that's the way you control who in the group is going to see what. So if you are BIM coordinators, you want to access to all, but the rebar workers, for instance, just going to access their information. So it's a way to control that. And we go to activity, use action log. We briefly touched on this. It's not something special, but you have an activity log. You can look at that, and you can filter down what type of activity you want to go into. This can also be edited, but that is something we will cover in a later stage. And you have the settings button, or setting page, where you see all the project information, and if you want to do something with it, just to touch on that, if you delete or select the project in Norwegian, and it will be not undoable. So therefore, if you want to delete something, just be sure that you delete in the right project. So now we have went through the introduction, Trimble Connect overview, and the project setup. So now I'll leave it over to Shi to go through the 3D viewer.
Yes. All project files and folders are listed in the model panel. Select everything in project and click this eye icon to load the model. The first time loading a model might be slow. That's because Trimble Connect converts the file to Trimble format. This is a one-time only case. You can also load the entire folder clicking on the dots to the right of the folder name. Select Load. You can hide a model that is loaded by clicking this eye icon. Then the model will be hidden from the 3D view. You can choose to show the entire project folder structure by selecting everything in project, or only show the selected models by choosing Selected Models. You can search for files with the search function. You can search by name or file extension. For example, I type IFC. All file types with IFC in the name are shown. Next thing I want to talk about is model details. you can view file detail and other functions from the Detail panel. Click on the dots to the right of the file name, click See Details. Here you can see the basic information of the file. For example, created by and created time, modified by and modified time. You can also see all the model revisions here. Select a version from the list. This version will be loaded into the 3D viewer. When loading an old version into the 3D viewer, a notification will appear at the top of the 3D viewer stating that newer file version is available. It is also possible to download this version to your PC. Now we will go through the basic functions on the toolbar at the top. There are 3 ways to navigate the model: rotate, pan, and look around. You do the navigation by holding down the left mouse button. Next, making selections. There are several ways to select objects in 3D. These are single selection mode, area selection mode, assembly selection mode, and multi-select mode. Single selection mode is the default setting. If you want to select multiple objects, either hold down Shift or turn on multi-select mode. Area selection mode. This function allows you to click and drag an area so that all objects in the area are selected. Drag the mouse from left to right, then the objects that are completely within the area are selected. Drag the mouse from right to left, then the objects that are completely and partially within the area are selected. When assembly selection mode is on, you can select the assembly at the highest level. And the properties shown in the Properties panel are assembly's properties. When we select objects in 3D, Selection Toolbar will appear at the bottom of the screen. Selection Toolbar can be used to interact with the model objects selected in the 3D viewer. First one is View Properties panel. Properties can be shown by clicking on View Properties panel. All properties shown here are originally from design authoring tools, for example, Tekla, Revit. You can mark properties you check often as favorite. Refresh list, then they will always be listed at the top of the Properties panel. Next one, Color and Transparency settings. Select an object. Click on Color and Transparency settings. You can change the color and transparency of the object. When you reset the model, the color and transparency settings will disappear, but you can save the color and transparency settings as a view. Next one, Hide Selection. Select an object that you want to hide, click Hide Selection, then the object will be hidden. When the object is still selected, click the button again, then the hidden object will become visible again. Otherwise, click Show all objects from the toolbar at the top. Then all the hidden objects are visible again. Show only selected objects. Select the objects that you want to show only. Click Show Only Selected Objects, then all other objects will be hidden. While the objects are still selected, click the button once more, then the hidden objects will become visible again. Otherwise, click Show All Objects from the toolbar at the top. Object attachments can be files, to-dos, or URLs. We can link them to a model object. They can provide specific instructions or important information related to this object. Select an object, click Add Attachment. We will talk about to-do afterwards. Select other attachment type. The project folder structure will be listed. Select the file you want to link to the object. For example, drawing. Otherwise, you can choose to link the object with an URL. Add attachment. When objects are linked to an attachment, the corresponding icon will be shown on top of these objects in the 3D view. By clicking the icon, we can see the attachment. The attachment can be removed from here also. Invisibility controls in the toolbar at the top, we can choose to hide the icon by unchecking Object Attachments. Even if the icon is hidden, the icon will still be shown if you select the object that is connected to an attachment. We can also use attachments on the side panel to get an overview of all attachments. Now we go back to the top toolbar and talk about visibility tools. As mentioned earlier before, show all objects, including objects that are hidden. Visibility controls, as I mentioned earlier, can be used to control the visibility of attachments, grids, and so on in 3D view. In Ghost mode, hidden objects are shown with high transparency as reference. For example, I select this slab and hide the other objects. When I turn on Ghost mode, I get the rest of the hidden objects as reference. You can adjust how 3D models are shown here. For example, from top, from front, and so on. And Reset model will reset all selections, object colors, visibility, markups, clip length, and measurements. Next, we go to measurements. We are going to talk a little bit about snapping first. When we activate the measurement, markup, and clip length function, a toolbar will appear at the top of the screen. You can choose between point, line, surface, and center. The default setting is auto, which means that you snap to the nearest point, line, surface, or center. You can use Measurement tool in Trimble Connect to measure distance in the 3D view. you can select a point and get X, Y, and Z coordinates. You can measure the angle. Select the measurement you have created. You can make changes in the measurement editing toolbar. You can delete all measurements by selecting Delete All Measurements in the main toolbar. You can use markups to mark objects in the 3D view. You can also add text to comment on the model. Markups can be saved with views. Select the markup you have created. You can make changes in the markup editing toolbar. You can delete all markups by selecting Delete All Markups in the main toolbar. Clipping plans. You can use clip plans to create a cross-section view of the 3D model. You can save the cross-section as a view and share it with the project members. You can create up to 8 clip plans at the same time in the view. Click Clip Plan on the main toolbar. It can be created along an object's face or edge line. When you choose an edge line to create a clip plan, the clip plan is created in the plane perpendicular to it. When you select Vertical Clip Plan, it forces to the creation of a vertical clip plan. You can move the cutting plan by dragging the scissors icon. Select the clip plan you have created. You can make changes in the editing toolbar. For example, flip the plan's direction and rotate the plan. You can also delete all the clip plans by selecting Delete All Clip Plans in the main toolbar. Now, let's do a quick run-through of the side panel. First is To-Dos. I will not go in detail since BCF Topics shares almost the same function as To-Dos, and we will focus more on that. Views. Views can be used to save views of models from different angles and with different colors, object visibility, and markups. Views are saved and can be reused and shared with other members of the project. We can also create view groups. In this way, we can organize the views. Adjust the models to the position you want to create a view of. click Add View, write title and description, assign it to a person or project group. Save. After we reset the model, and when we click the view, we can see that it still keeps the measurement and clip plan. Since there can be several versions of a model in a project, it is possible to load the view using the original models where the views was created. Otherwise, the view will be the latest version of the models. That means the view is dynamic, but you have the option to load the original version. Then, BCF Topics. BCF Topics is an issue management system and is meant for communication between the project members. The communication topics can be, for example, issues, requests, questions, or clashes. Connect BCF Topics enables model-based communication, which means that you can link your issue directly to a BIM model using 3D views and links to model objects. However, it's not a must to have a BIM model to communicate with BCF Topics. BCF stands for BIM Collaboration Format and is an open industry standard from Building Smart International. Being an open standard, it enables sharing issues between applications that supports the standard, creating smoother workflows. When you have found an issue, open the BCF Topics. For example, I'm wondering if this pad is designed in the correct size. Click the plus button. Write the information. And I will assign the topic to a structure group and to a responsible engineer. Choose type, inquiry, priority, normal, choose the due date, add text, structure, and status, new. I can add references to reference the document on the topic. For example, the guideline. Click Save. The design team and the structure responsible engineer will get the notification. So instead of the traditional methods of communication like emails, drawings, markups, which are slow and error-prone, BCF provides a standardized and efficient way to communicate, manage, and resolve issues within the context of a BIM model. Then we have data table and organizer at the side panel. We call these functions workflow extensions. We can use these functions to add information and customize workflow based on your project needs and have more control over your project. Today, we will just do the basic introduction. Tomorrow, we will focus more on these functions. We can think of data table as an ITO, information takeoff, and MTO, material takeoff tool. Data table can group objects based on different properties. We can choose which columns should be visible. We can check quantities and export them to Excel sheets as CSV format. Organizer. Organizer is used to defining breakdown structure and group objects. You stay organized by defining breakdown structures and grouping objects together as you see fit. For example, you can create groups by project phase, work package, objects to be cast in place, or prefab. And you can group objects by area, MMI status, and so on. So people get organized information that suits them without searching everywhere. And with Organizer, you can make the quality check of the model information easier and more efficient. And last, custom properties. Since different groups have different needs for information, you can create your own property sets in Trimble Connect. In this way, you don't have to go back to the original authoring tool to add properties and export it again. For example, the planner can create a property set about material status and connect it to the work package. So,
to summarize what we talked about today, we had a short introduction of us in Building Point, first of all, but Trimble Connect overview as well. We talked a little bit about how to set up your first project. We went heavily through the 3D viewer, all the buttons, so what to click and how it works. And we had a short introduction on the workflow extensions. So this is something we're going to cover more tomorrow.
Yes.
But if you have any questions, please reach out to us, and thank you for participating to this webinar. Bye-bye.